Is Cyberpunk 2077 a worse video game release than Sonic 06? Let's talk about it. Alright, so here's the thing, right? When Sonic 06 came out, everyone fucking hated it. You know, it was hot piece of garbage, a lot of glitches, yada yada yada, right? Me personally, I was just a kid, so I didn't really know any better, and I loved the game. And ever since then, I've always had nostalgia for the game. So I can't really say that I hate the game, right? But with the recent release of Cyberpunk 2077, I mean, you might as well call it Cyberpunk 1977 because that's what the fucking game looks like. Like, okay, it's bad enough that the game on PS4 and Xbox One is really shitty, right? And yeah, there's a bunch of people talking about the different sides of the argument, like, oh, why are you playing it on a 8-year-old console? Whatever, right? Well, they initially made the game for these consoles, but I'm not here to talk about all that. We already know that. We've heard it all before, whatever, right? What I'm talking about is the release of the game itself, right? The release of the game can be different from the actual game, especially nowadays when games come out and they have all these patches. I think one of the worst video game releases in recent years was Street Fighter V, which sucks because honestly, Street Fighter V is like one of my favorite games currently, but I can admit, like, the release of the game was fucking terrible. Like, the game came out and like they released the game early so that, you know, people could play online and kind of practice for Evo, right? The problem is the game came out and the servers were down, so you couldn't play online. Like, you couldn't play just against the computer. You could only play like these little story modes that each character had that were like some shitty fights, some cutscenes that were just pictures with dialogue. And other than that, all they had was survival mode, which was fucking abysmal at the time. Later on they fixed it, but whatever, right? But basically when the game came out, it was fucking ass. Although in Street Fighter V's defense, at least it looked nice. At least the gameplay like made everyone really happy because it was a breath of fresh air from Street Fighter 4. It was a lot more neutral focus and everything like that. And it ran smooth, you know what I mean? You just couldn't really do anything, and that's what really still to this day leaves a sour taste in people's mouth when they think of Street Fighter V. For me, I love Street Fighter enough to kind of forget about that, and you know, even during that time, I still really loved Street Fighter, and I was still really excited to play the game. Like a smart human being, I did wait until they fixed a lot of the things, but I wasn't smart enough to wait before Jury, so I had to play as her day one, so, you know. Anyway, aside from that, right? Street Fighter V, I would say now is in a really good place. You know, I think a lot of people have good thoughts about the game now because they've added a whole lot more content to the game since its initial release. Even though some people still hate it, and rightfully so. I mean, the release was really terrible. But you know, now that's in the past, and now I think for the most part the general audience has a good perception of Street Fighter V. Now we go back to Cyberpunk, right? What makes it a bad release? The reason why this game, even though the game isn't terrible on all consoles, and maybe the content of the game itself is amazing, the storytelling, the graphics, whatever, right? Even though the game isn't completely terrible, like the reason that makes the game release so bad is the fact that, you know, they lied. They straight up lied to a lot of people, didn't show any footage of how the game runs on the PS4 and Xbox One, and then they just released it. And they were like, oh, sorry, you know, no, like you guys fucked up. But everyone kind of regards Sonic 06 as like notoriously the worst game ever made because of the amount of glitches and bugs in that game when it came out was just insane, right? So let's compare the two and see which one's actually worse, right? To me, I feel like you could argue that Cyberpunk has a bit of an edge because, like, even though Cyberpunk is fucking dog shit, I think if we're just looking at the games themselves, again, Cyberpunk only on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and then Sonic 06 for the 360 and PS3, I think Cyberpunk looks a lot fucking worse. The amount of bugs and glitches are probably about the same, Actually, no. I would say Cyberpunk maybe has a few more glitches and bugs than Sonic 06 did. But at least Sonic 06, you didn't have to wait 15 seconds just for textures to pop in. Like, that's fucking ridiculous. The other argument is that in Cyberpunk, for those consoles, like, yes, it is terrible. For PS4 and Xbox One, it is fucking terrible. But there's also a version of Cyberpunk that does run okay on the next gen consoles and on PC. So, and Sonic 06 didn't have that at the time, right? But here's another thing to look at. Cyberpunk 2077 had like what, 7-8 years of production, of development. Like, this game had a long time. Like, people were waiting for this game for a long time. This game's been in development for a long time, and you know, it still came out like that. Whereas Sonic 06, we all know, was really rushed because they were trying to make the deadline for like Sonic's, I forgot if it was 25th or 20th anniversary, but it was an anniversary for Sonic, so it was supposed to be an anniversary game, and that's why they were rushing, and you know, they rushed the hell out of that game, right? Ironically, even though they rushed the shit out of that game, I think Sonic 06 is still one of the best looking games for the 360, and especially for its time. It came out in 2006, like, and it still looks really good. The graphics, the textures. I mean, I remember as a kid being blown the fuck away when I saw Dr. Eggman looking like realistic. Like, I was like, holy shit, bro. They really stepped it up with the graphics for that game, and especially because it was one of the first games, if I remember correctly, it was one of the first games for the 360 for those consoles. Because I remember I got my 360 on Christmas and I got that game immediately. Like, that was the first game I had, and you know, so the fact that they had that much work and that much put into the graphics for that game for that time, I think that alone says a lot and speaks volumes to make up for its shitty release and the bugs and everything like that. Whereas Cyberpunk had way more time to be developed, and at the same time, the PS4 and Xbox One have had a long cycle. For it to come out for that console, it's different, because when Sonic 06 came out for the 360, you know, you could argue, okay, well, it's a new console. Maybe there's things they needed to figure out in terms of developing games for the console. But for Cyberpunk, PS4 and Xbox One have been out for a minute. They developed the game originally for those consoles. There's nothing that they could say that they didn't know or couldn't figure out how to make their game look the same way it does on PC for those consoles. Yeah, you can argue it's not as powerful, but still, I mean, you've got games like The Last of Us, you know, Ghost of Tsushima, all these other games that look amazing on PS4. Not even, you know, PS4 Pro or whatever, like on a base PS4, those games look and run amazing. So there's no reason Cyberpunk couldn't do the same. You know what I mean? Okay, so I basically said all I needed to say. Now that we've seen time and time again companies, developers abolish video game releases, can we stop the hate for Sonic 06? I mean, it was literally 14 years ago. I don't know. I feel like there's so many other games, well, maybe not that many, but there's other games that have higher reputations and have provided worse products. And, you know, yet we still kind of hold Sonic 06 up on that pedestal as the worst game ever made, which at this point, I don't know anymore, you know? But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Is Cyberpunk for the PS4 and Xbox One a worse video game release than Sonic 06? Which company do you think handled their release better? If you liked the video, please make sure to subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. And yeah, that's about it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please leave a like, and I'll see you guys in the next video.